Hey guys, it's Crondis here today, and it is just me today. So last week, Mod Osborne hosted a lore Q&A with Mod Stu, Mod Raven, and Mod Jack, and we were going to record something on it, but the Genome Project stuff kind of took priority since we kind of wanted to get that out timely. So I am a bit late on it, so I'm sorry about that. But I will be going through some of the questions, some of the answers. A lot of it is stuff that we kind of already knew, but there is some stuff that I do kind of want to hit on because it is pretty important. So I'm just going to jump right into this. So the first question was asking about the three pillars of the Sixth Age. For people who don't know, the three pillars were originally the Dragonkin, the Gods, and the Elder Gods, I believe. And that was just basically the three arcs of the story that they were going to eventually tell. So the answer we got on this was basically that they kind of tweaked it a bit, which we kind of already knew. The story wasn't originally going the way that they had intended back in 2012, I think was when the World Wake started. So yeah, it's been tweaked. And they said that the Stone of Jazz story is definitely done, which we kind of knew after Endgame. It was asked about more Quest in 2018. So, this is something I do kind of want to hit on. I think we kind of all knew that 2017 was a really bad year for quests. And they kind of hit this point that I don't want to get too ranty, because I can. But they got into the issue of quest requirements, and the issue that comes up when you have quests after endgame. And that they don't want to be putting these massive requirements on quests, because it locks people out. I know that there are arguments on both sides of this. I really do, and I do understand some of them. But I have never been one to say that it's bad to lock people out with quest requirements. Story is meant to be done linearly, at least if you're taking out the sense of choice and stuff. And to just completely get rid of requirements, honestly, I can't agree with that. Because if we go back to 2012, 2013, when the World Wakes came out, and they started this whole recommended nonsense. Well, okay, it got some players to do it, yes, but look where we ended up. A couple years later, 2016, you have quests coming around like Children of Ma and Sliske's Endgame that, guess what? You require things like Ritual of the Majorat, like Wild Gothic Sleeps. So you did all of this for nothing. So you see how this all comes back around to being bullshit. And they want to say that if they get rid of quest and they do what they called previously on, that basically showed you the story that you missed in the quests that they haven't made you do, that this catches you up if you didn't do it. I'm sorry, but I find that to be horseshit. I cannot accept quests going just completely without requirements. Now, they did bring up the argument of, well, what if we gave you quests, but with no requirements, but we put the requirements on the rewards instead? That is fair enough. I can somewhat accept that, but here's the thing. Not everyone is like me. Not everyone is like the lore players who follow this channel, or even if you follow this channel and you're not a lore player. Some people do just do the quests for the rewards. So if you're locking the rewards behind the quests, or behind the requirements, then what are you accomplishing? And this is where I think it comes down to the big meat of things, and that is the fact that Jagex is so worried about first day numbers, about first week numbers. Why are you so worried about these numbers? I get it, you're a business and you have to show things. But where did the logic go that this stopped being an MMO? That this stopped being something that will continue to exist and that people will continue to do over time? I get that, a certain amount of people doing it on release is cool, but what does that show? People are going to do this over time because you will always have things like comp. You will always have things like the quest cape. You only will have these further and further goals that require you to do these things. So even if you don't do it on the first day or first week or first month or even in the first year, you will have to do it eventually. And this is where I simply cannot get behind this logic of requirements to the win, just let everyone do it. Like I said, I know there are arguments on both sides, but I've never been one to get behind the no requirement situation. Alright, so ranting right off at the start. That's great. Okay, moving on. So, a question was asked about the Clockwork Gnome in the Christmas event, the Genome Project. And they basically kind of said that it fits in the same stitching life together as the Nihil with Zeros, which, okay, I mean, I don't know why, honestly, we're talking about holiday events and canon. It honestly didn't make too much sense how this worked, because if you look at the way Zeros made the Nihil, he was kind of like tearing life apart and then stitching it back together. With the holiday event, we were pretty much like, we took a clockwork and we put it together with a portal, a soul obelisk, and a machine, and we made skin and organs. Like, that just didn't make sense, and honestly, to say that even slightly counts in the same sense as the Nihil is kind of just stupid to me. So, moving on, we have a question about Evil Dave being canon. Or, well, actually, this was a continuation, but they brought up Evil Dave. And they basically said that the Evil Dave quest was canon. And this kind of agitates me, because here we are getting back into the meat of what is and isn't canon when you have these bullshit story comedy garbage that is there for a joke. Because they even say, if it's being played as a joke, don't stress about canon because it likely won't be referenced seriously later on. Well, okay, I can accept that as an answer, but why are we going to go with that being canon? If you're going to say, this gets back into the whole thing about what is and isn't canon. And it's honestly a stupid argument, and I can't stand it, personally. Alright, the Tower of Life is grossly outdated. Yes, we kind of already knew that. This is from a time before major continuity in the story. If any of you are out there that don't remember the Tower of Life, I wouldn't blame you. It's a pretty uninteresting quest, but basically what happens is you have these wizards in a tower, and they create what's called a homunculus, and he kind of just seemingly comes out of nowhere. Yeah, it's an ew kind of situation in old lore that you kind of just want to forget ever happened. They said that, this was actually an interesting comment from Stu that continues on with this whole life situation from the Clockwork, which was that the Takar were created by Full to be sentient life, but be carefully controlled. We kind of already knew that. It's not explicitly stated in Brink of Extinction, but it is fairly implied. He also said that the Tsar laying eggs is a trait inherited from Fall, which I can get behind. I mean, it makes sense. You know, she created the life that would come out of the forge, or the kiln, to, resemble her. She was the model for the life that she was creating. So I can see them kind of reverting to her traits eventually. Next question, which funnily enough came from our own Captain Lime, was about the Obsidian Tribunal and why he wasn't on Gielinor. And an interesting comment they made is that in the question, Lime phrased it as in gods like the Obsidian Tribunal. And they said, do not make the assumption that the Obsidian Tribunal is a god. Now, if anyone is out there that doesn't know who the Obsidian Tribunal is, also understandable, because he's only referenced once, and only if you get the Saradomin ending at the end of Endgame, which we've gone into before of why that's a stupid ending. But basically, he is a being that was holding Saradomin's daughter captive, and Zeros saved her from the Obsidian Tribunal. So yeah, basically the Obsidian Tribunal isn't a god. Future world events. Honestly, I'm kind of burnt out on world events. I really don't want any. I think World Event 2 was probably the best that you could get gameplay-wise. I think it was great. Its story kind of sucked, just because the ending of it, I think we all believe, is fairly controversial. Raven made an interesting comment here about Rite of Passage, and basically that he had originally made Rite of Passage in thinking that, or not really made, but planning out to make Rite of Passage thinking that Armadillo was going to lose. So basically Rite of Passage was going to be our Mighty Fall. But then, obviously Bandos was losing fairly bad, especially from the very beginning, and so they dropped Rite of Passage and made the Mighty Fall instead. Next question was about who are vampires loyal to. We already knew the answer to this. That is neither Zeros nor Zamorak. They are kind of on their own at this point. Is the dragon homeworld Frenisgay? No. This is again some really old lore stuff. There is a fairy in Frenisgay, no, not Frenisgay, Zenaros, that mentions that she got dragon equipment from Frenisgay. They said she was probably lying. And I also seem to remember 4K mentioning that he could reach the Dragonkin homeworld from the World Gate, which is odd. It's an odd answer to that, because we kind of all assumed that maybe it was Frenisgay because of his statement on that. But, they were very quick to answer this, so it seems like they either know what the Dragonkin homeworld is, or that they at least know that it's not Frenisgay. Next question was about the Karamjan god. So there has been talk before about a Karamjan god. This is something that Mod Osborne said quite a few years ago now. And it was something that I believe they had planned and then kind of just got put on the back burner. But there is a Karamjan god that is unique to them. And we've just never gotten content about it. And they didn't really give us an answer on this. It kind of just skirted around. They'll get to it when they get to it. And that's fairly upsetting, because I want to see where that story goes. Oh boy, the next question, I hate this so much. The spirit realm versus the spirit plane. Why are we still having questions like this? This is something that even the wiki has fairly down pat, the difference between the spirit realm and the spirit plane. The spirit plane is the plane you go to in the familiarization minigame. This is where summoning familiars are from. The spirit realm is the place that you find in the wilderness when you use Jennica's ring. Very, very, very obviously different places. They have even gone back and retroactively fixed names in places where this was mixed up, such as Lord Amblod, where they had used the wrong terminology. Honestly, guys, this is an old conversation. I don't know why we're still stuck on this. Tomb Worlds. Again, Tomb Worlds is something from in-game that is kind of just in the weird dialogue that you may or may not get. And Raven said that it was not really intended to be anything, that it's just a result of him being, flowery with his writing. But if that they did exist, it might be worlds associated with the elements of death, or that it could be a prison planet, but don't take it too seriously. Why does Crondis have boobs? Well, I don't have boobs. I'm a man. But no, seriously. Something else, we've known for years that gods can shapeshift. This is some super, 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 super old lore. I don't know why this is still a question, unless it was just a joke. Will Zaltak be the next villain? Raven had a very big emphasis on this. He will not be the next villain. Yeah. So the next one, where does the Runespan fit in the cosmology map? Stu does not know. He said they've actually not gone through and figured this out, but that it probably is in the balance plane. Which, in case you don't remember, the cosmology map is the same place that Gillinor is. And we get to my question that they answered, yes. And it was, why was there a retcon with Ixalan and Amascut? And in case anyone doesn't know, which, I can understand, again, in-game dialogue that you may or may not have gotten. So basically, for years and years and years now, we have always been told that Ixalan and Amascut have been the children of Tumikin and Elidnus. Children, meaning that they are demigods. And in in-game, we were told that Ixalan was Tumikin and Elidnus' pet dog, and Amascut was their pet cat, and that they were ascended. This is a retcon. Regardless of if they want to say it or not, it is. Now, the answer that they gave is that we didn't know how gods reproduce, and that them being ascended pets, more or less, is them answering how gods would reproduce with each other. And I will concede on the point of, you're right, we didn't know how gods reproduce. I will give you that point. But here's the thing. If we're gonna go on the assumption that, okay, gods are these matrices of energy and whatever, and that Tumikin put his energy in the dog, and then so did Elidnus, and this combination of two energies, it produces a child, and this child is a demigod. Okay, well then, what is Crondis? What is Het? What is Scabarus? What is that Meccan? Because they are the same exact things. They are animals that Tumikin put energy into, and thus became gods. So where does that put Ixalan and Amascut? Is it simply the fact that two gods put their energy into it, and these energies mixed? This needs some serious clearing up, because the answer they gave is honestly kind of bullshit. It feels like they were pulling it out their ass for it. if you want to say that they can't reproduce in the same sense of, like, boning, okay, I get it. Gods are sterile, fine. But, I mean, we have Sarah Doman having a daughter at this point. We don't know how that's working out. But, I don't know. I feel like some major clearing up needs to be done here. Because, I don't know. I have a hard time accepting this answer. Maybe y'all don't. Maybe I'm crazy. The next question was... It was about defining what a god is. And basically it was, if you put divine energy into a piece of toast, would it become a god, a sentient god? And the main answer there is no. Because this is really getting into what defines a god. Because they mention that divine energy in and of itself can't give you sentience. And we know this because of Tuska. Tuska was not a sentient god. She was just a wild animal that obtained godhood somehow. She got divine energy. And she was crazy. That's why the Eru were able to control her, is because she's just a wild animal. So obviously, if you put divine energy into a piece of toast, it's not going to be a god. It might be divine toast. See, this was a really weird and roundabout question, and I don't really understand the purpose of it. It's basically, where do we define a god? I don't know. Next we get kind of the outcome of the Second God Wars, if we want to call it that. Because there was never really a God Wars, it was kind of just... the Cold War, I guess, is really the example they used. And it's that Saradomin thinks that he rules Gillador. Surprise, surprise, he's a dick. Yeah. He thinks because he has the most followers that, well, he rules the world. Can an Illuyanka clear the mind of a god like Tuska and Lornab? I think the question itself is not too relevant, but I do like some of the inside answer that they gave us. And it's that the Illuyanka can... the way that they bind to animals has always been fairly vague. And it's that they have this sympathetic symbiosis where they can attach to animals more easily, cold-blooded animals, but not necessarily needed. And that it helps them create an understanding between each other in the same way that, you know, pets have an understanding with people. And that the way that they connect to dragons is that they help clear the dragon's rage. And because, you know, we know that, we've known for a long time that dragons are sentient creatures, but the reason they attack us is because they are kind of crazy. You know, they still have the effects of the stone on them. So they still have a bunch of rage. And that the Illuyanka kind of clear the rage when they're binded. And so they can think clearly, and they can act like sentient creatures. So I thought that was just an interesting touch. Oh boy, Ruinous Magic. This is where I feel some of the J-mods really dropped the ball. Because while this answer is, albeit, you know, kind of old and concentrated in one area where the answer is, it is in game. It is an established answer. And it is something that is very, very, very basic. That, you know, maybe they just had a bad day and they just didn't remember it. But I will get into it. So, Ruinous Magic. magic is inherently runeless. Let's start this out. Magic, in and of itself, is runeless. It is just a power that living creatures have. The issue is that it's dangerous. You can go out and you can perform spells without runes, but you run the risk of spontaneously combusting. That's how magic works. It is an inherent ability that every living creature has, and using it is very dangerous. What runes do is runes help you focus your ability, and it decreases the risk significantly because it allows you to concentrate and focus and kind of guide the energy in a certain path. The reason species like Majorat and elves can use runeless magic is because they are much more powerful species than we are, or humans are. That they have much less of a risk with using magic runeless because they are so powerful. They could use runes, they could get a focus boost from them, but they don't need them because the boost would be so minute that it would be a waste of their time. And you might be wondering where all this is coming from. It comes from the Moon Clan on Lunar Isle. It is very clearly defined how magic works there. Because the Moon Clan are humans that understand magic. Through using the stone, they were able to understand magic on a very basic level. Or not basic, but complex level. That they understand the intricacies of what magic is as a force, I guess is the best way to say it. And so they are able to use runeless magic because they have this extreme knowledge of what magic is in and of itself, you know? So, yeah, in short, runeless magic is something everyone can do. You can't do it as a player because that is game-breaking game mechanics. That's just something that you have to live with. But in lore, yes, magic is runeless. Next one comes with the Bane ore. So, just in case anyone missed the new mining and smithing rework update, they changed the level 80, I believe? Or was it 70? No, I think 70 is Necrite. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's level 80. They changed it to Bane ore, essentially. It used to be Invictum, it's Bane ore now. Personally, I'm not a big fan of this. But, you know, it kind of is what it is. And they were answering the conflict that it would have with Ritual of the Majorat. Because if you remember in that quest, one of the rewards is Bane ore. And what they said here is that perhaps the Bane ore from Ritual of the Majorat is a special type. That it's the only type that can be attuned, like we know Bane ore can be. That something about it is inherently special. And I can kind of get behind that. I mean, we have rocks in the game that are just special because they're special. If anyone remembers in the Sea Slug series, there is a refined gold ore, I think is what it was called. Basically, it's like super pure or something. It's basically a gold rock, but it is special in some way because it is special. So there's precedent for it, but I don't know. I kind of feel like I liked Invictum better. Whatever. It's not that big of a deal. Why is Sliske and Jas working together in-game? This is something that, honestly, I think they dropped the ball on. because, you know, in Kindred Spirits they built up this, oh, who is Sliske's master? And, you know, it wasn't really that big of a deal because Kindred Spirits kind of sucked, honestly. But in-game revealed it to be Jas. And I was never very big on this answer, just because I didn't feel like there was a reason for it. Why would Jas need Sliske? And the answer that they gave was that Jas wanted to understand life, and Sliske volunteered. And because he's Sliske, you know, he had these back motives or whatever it was. And that's really just the extent of the answer. And I'm honestly not satisfied with that answer. It kind of is just more in-game bullshit, really, is what it is. Sorry if you like in-game, but it's got a lot of holes in it. And so the last thing that was said is Osborn is dropping out from the Lore Council. I'm pretty conflicted on this. And I kind of hope Mod Osborn listens to this, because the lore community is kind of in a bind right now. We have very little mods right now who know and understand and appreciate the story. And to see one go simply because either time constraints or whatever else really sucks, honestly. Like, I love that we have really story-focused J-mods like Stu and Raleigh and Jack and Raven. I appreciate those guys very much. And I appreciate Osborn, because he does a lot for the story. And to just have one drop out, and that one being someone who might know the story better than anyone else. He's been leading it for a long time now. It honestly is kind of a blow, you know? I hope he isn't dropping out in the sense that he's saying he is, in the sense that he won't have any guidance over it, because I hope that he does. I think in a time like this we need as many story-driven mods as we can scrounge together. And that's really how it is. I will miss you being on the Lore Council, Osborn. Really will. And so that's it. That is it for today's video. Kind of ran a bit longer than I was expecting it to be, but oh well. I hope you like it. We do have some more videos coming out in the next week or so about a 2017 roundup. We're going to have a video on the top 10 best updates and the top 10 worst. So expect those coming fairly soon. And until next time, see you guys.